to a blockbuster trade involving two superstar point guards. Houston traded Russell Westbrook to Washington, where he will team up with All-Star Bradley Beal. Meanwhile, John Wall joins James Harden in another star-studded Rockets backcourt. So here's the details. Houston gets Wall in a lottery-protected 2023 first-round pick. Washington gets Westbrook. Max Kellerman, bigger deal, Wall to Houston or Russ to D.C.?
Westbrook to D.C., and it's not close. I don't know what John Wall is anymore, and at his best, he wasn't Westbrook at Westbrook's best. Westbrook is special. The energy that Westbrook can shoot, they have certain skills in common. But if all of a sudden you look at the East and the Celtics, because of Kemba's injury, because of Gordon Hayward's exit, have been diminished somewhat, right? And now the Wizards, who remember a couple of years ago, were like, oh, they might have the best player in the East in John Wall, and so maybe we like them to get deep into the playoffs. Then that went away. And especially Wall and Beal didn't seem to work together. But Westbrook and Bradley Beal, we'll see how it works together. But that's an improvement. And that backcourt, except for Chris Paul and Devin Booker, that backcourt presently is probably the best in the league. I think the Wizards just got leaps and bounds better than they would have been. And Westbrook going there, they had to give up, they got out of John Wall's contract, and they gave up a first-round pick. They get Westbrook back. That's actually really good. The Wizards just got much better, and that's the story.
Well, I would say this to you, Max. The Wizards, I think the Wizards got better. I don't think there's any question about that. But the bottom line is I don't think that's the biggest story. I think the biggest story is John Wall in Houston. It's not just because he's coming off his injury. It's not just because we want to be intrigued by what we see from him. But it's also about whether or not that's going to be enough to let James Harden want to stay in Houston, which my answer to that would be an emphatic no. The fact of the matter is when you look at James Harden would love to end his career in Houston, but I think that means going somewhere else, winning a championship, and then ultimately coming back to Houston to end his career. I think he knows that if he wants to win a championship, he has to be someplace other than Houston, Texas in order to pull that off for the Rockets organization. That ain't going to cut it. Now, they're still waiting for a solid offer that would make them want to let go of James Harden. He wants out, but they're not going to lose him for anything less than something close to equitable compensation. That's their position. So to me, Wall going there and them making this move, they basically made the move because, as KP knows all too well, Russell Westbrook is a man's man. He's got a very strong personality. And if he looks you in the face and tells you he does not want to play with you anymore, you're going to get rid of him because you damn sure ain't going to keep Russell someplace that he does not want to be. So they made this move to appease Russell Westbrook and getting him out of there because that's what he wanted, as opposed to thinking about what they're getting in return. They got John Wall. They know that's a wash in terms of him compared to Westbrook, but they also got an additional first-round pick to go along with that. They still have to do something about James Harden. I don't think Wall's arrival is enough to make James Harden want to stay in Houston, and that's where my issue lies with this, Kendrick.
Well, Max, you spoke the gospel, and Stephen A., you were speaking a little bit of the gospel until that last part where you said it was a wash. Look, let me tell you something. It's no even trade between John Wall and the Russell Westbrook. That's not even. It's a bigger deal with Russell Westbrook going to the Washington Wizards. Look, we got to stop. We got to stop this. It's a separation between the two. We're talking about a guy who could possibly be in the MVP conversation every single year in Russell Westbrook, a guy that won the MVP, a guy that averaged a triple-double for 3 consecutive seasons, a guy that was blessed by the great Kobe Bryant with the Mamba mentality that is landing with the Washington Wizards. Now, here's why I say it's a bigger deal. When you look at what Russell Westbrook brings to the table, he's going over there with Scott Brooks. I was with Russ and Scott Brooks when we were up in Oklahoma City, and there was one coach that I seen hold Russ accountable, and that was Scotty Brooks, and Russ took it. Russ got the ultimate respect for Scott Brooks, and it's vice versa. Another thing, Russell Westbrook is going to do great for Bradley Beal, and here's why. Look at what Paul George did when he played under Russell Westbrook. We were talking about him possibly winning the MVP. He was an MVP finalist. And him and Paul George and Bradley Beal are on the same level. So you go and put Bradley Beal, a
Yep.
guy who doesn't need the ball in his hands, alongside a guy like Russell Westbrook, who could get him easy shots where he don't have to work as hard. He could possibly lead the league in scoring the way that Bradley Beal is capable of putting the ball in the bucket. And here's another thing. We're forgetting about a guy by the name of David Bertans. Yes, he's not a household name, but when it comes down to being one of the best shooters in the NBA, damn it, that's him. That's him. You talk about shooting from the parking lot, Stephen A. He's shooting it from the private jet. I mean, he got a ratchet on him. I like Rui Hachimura. I like them adding Big Lopez. I like the kid Thomas Bryant, who's probably going to come in as a backup center or maybe even start. He's a double-double guy, a great rebounder, great rim protector. And also you have Troy Brown, who's a feisty individual at the wing that could go and defend. And then on top of that, you have a guy that is well respected in the league by every single person. Every single person, and that's Ismit. Ismit comes in the game. He changed the tempo and everything.
Hold on.
And then you have Scottie Assistant and Robert Pack. Hold on, you taking this L today. And then he have Robert Pack, who Russ respects more.
Taking
his
down there
with
what?
him in OKC.
What did I say that requires an L?
I'm trying to teach because I'm trying to teach you the gospel why it's a bigger deal for the Washington Wizards to get Russ than John Wall going to the Rockets.
They're going to go to the playoffs and then they're going to go home, KP?
That's what I don't know that. I don't know that because I know
Washington
You don't know
Wizards
that?
are one player away from being a real problem.
I don't know that. I don't know.
They're one player away from being a real
All
problem.
I know is that every time I step in the arena and I have a guy like Russell Westbrook, I like my chances on winning a basketball game. A healthy Russell Westbrook at that.
Let me respond to both of y'all on both of y'all points here. First of all, as it pertains to Russell Westbrook just finished averaging 27. I know he's a superstar talent, and I know that he's an upgrade from John Wall. When I'm talking about when I say it's a wash, I'm not comparing John Wall and Russell Westbrook in terms of talent. I'm saying their game is somewhat similar when it comes to being paired with James Harden. So as a result of that, if James Harden is still there, doing what James Harden has done, how is that going to be any different for you than when you had Russ there? That's all I mean by that. I'm not talking about how John Wall can average 27 to 30 like Russell Westbrook can. I know better than that. I'm just talking about that. As it pertains to Daryl Morey, profound respect and love for Daryl Morey, Max Kellerman. I know what an exceptional executive is. I think the Sixers are lucky to have him. But keep in mind, he was there for about 13 years, okay? Had a top 5 payroll every time. They never got to the finals. All I'm saying to you is at some point in time, when I look at Raphael Stone, for example, right now, he got 3 first rounds. He's got that Cat Woods from the Pistons. Okay, you just picked up Wall. I'm not sure about all of that. But again, the proof in the pudding is going to see what he can get for James Harden. The flip side to it is let's not talk about the Houston Rockets like they got a chip to show for all their troubles over the last 15 years, because that has not been the case.
The Rockets had a Game 7 against
and
the
they would have lost
73-win
that
Warriors,
too.
who then added KD.
They would have lost
Rockets
that
had
too.
a Game 7 at home. They had a Game 7 at home against that team. The Cavs had nothing for them.
Stephen A,
real quick, Perk.
I want you to go, Max.
The Wizards right now went from a team that, thank you, Perk. The Wizards right now went from a team that was buried with a bad John Wall deal, an aging player who may never be the same, and they were irrelevant, and they weren't going anywhere. They went from that to suddenly, if they pick up another all-star player somehow, if an Oladipo, or maybe not Oladipo, but someone like that becomes available and they can add him to the mix, add a guy, suddenly the Wizards are live. They went from forget about the next several years. They're buried, they're irrelevant, they're terrible.
They're going to make the playoffs.
Damn, Washington suddenly is live.
Max, can you go back and reiterate on what you was talking about with the Warriors in Game 7 with the Houston Rockets? What you were saying?
I'm saying that Daryl Morey took a team that didn't have a central superstar, identified James Harden, got him for a song, and because of the way they played, They took a Warriors team with KD, with Clay, with Steph, with Draymond, with the whole thing healthy. They took that team to a Game 7 at Houston. And then Chris Paul wasn't available, and they couldn't shoot to save their lives, and it was only a single-digit loss. Like, no one else did that.
KP speak. He's got to go. Let KP speak. He's got to go.
No, Max.
Go ahead, KP.
No, Max, I'm glad you said that because I just caught you up in something else. So next time we have a debate about James Harden not showing up in the playoffs, we're going to make sure we rewind this tape about you basically giving him praise and not having Chris Paul. Like I was telling you once before that they had to go through KD and that Golden State Warriors team is the reason why James couldn't make it to the finals. I'm glad you brought up that point because I wanted
James
to
hit some
catch
shots.
you up
You
on
beat that team.
Bye, Perk. Talk to you soon. You always bring it. Guys, football, I want to talk about what he had a game yesterday. Pittsburgh Ravens. Stephen A., your squad. Was this a good or bad win for your Steelers, Mr. Smith?
I think it was a bad win. I think their offense looked absolutely atrocious. It was atrocious. And considering all the issues that the Baltimore Ravens had because of COVID-19, there is no excuse why the Pittsburgh Steelers offense looked that awful. They literally should be ashamed of their performances, and I'd have them running suicides for the next 2 days.
It wasn't a good win. It was a great win, guys. The Baltimore Ravens had no one at the end of last year either. They started RG3. They rested all their starters, and they beat Pittsburgh 28-10. And Pittsburgh had a lot to play for, a winning record without Ben Roethlisberger. The fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers did stink, all three phases stunk, is the best thing that could have happened for them because they escaped with the win. They have all the motivation they need. They can't rest on their laurels in a trap game against Washington, and they're that much closer to where they want to be. So it's actually exactly what the doctor ordered.
All right. Well, this was a fun show. We sure had a lot to talk about. Guess what? Tomorrow, I like to call it a Feel-Good Friday. We also call it a Football Friday. There's a lot of football to discuss, plus more NBA. We'll be here for you tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. Fellas, you have a lovely day.